these austere times, how much has been spent on the Jubilee celebrations. I'm sure the happy couple will have a great day. But what a difference the money would have made to poor people who are really suffering, not only in Wales, but across the world.
Meddai Bethan Jenkins, aelod Cynulliad Plaid Cymru ar gyfer Gorllewin De Cymru. Rwy'n falch o gefnogi'r digwyddiad gweriniaethol yma, sy'n dangos bod llawer o bobl yng Nghymru yn gwrthod prynu mewn i ddathliadau'r Jubilee. A'r syniad y dylen ni ddathlu'r achlysur yma sy'n rhoi statws i'r syniad o frenhiniaeth a'r syniad y gallwch chi osod rai pobl uwch ben y lleill dim ond oherwydd eu bod nhw wedi cael ei geni i deuluoedd penodol. Rwy'n credu y byddai Cymru yn wlad well o lawer pe bai hi'n weriniaeth annibynnol yn torri'n rydd o'r hen draddodiadau Prydeinig ac yn creu ei dyfodol radical hi ei hunan. Mwyn i hyn ddigwydd, rhaid i ni ledaenu'r neges nad yw braint yn hawl y gallwch chi ei etifeddu. Bydd digwyddiadau fel hyn yn helpu i wneud pobl yn ymwybodol o hynny. Ac yn Saesneg, Bethan Jenkins, Plaid Cymru, AM for South Wales West, said, I am proud to support this Republican event, which demonstrates that many people in Wales do not buy into these Jubilee celebrations, nor into the idea that we should mark this anniversary, which legitimises the idea of monarchy and that people can be set above others purely through the family they are born into. I believe that Wales would be a far better country if it were an independent republic, which would break from the old British traditions and create its own radical future. To do this, we must spread the message that privilege is not a hereditary right. Events like this will help to make people aware of that. Diolch, Bethan.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you very much. Poems da iawn, cerddi da iawn. Croeso i'r Bay, welcome to the Bay. I have got to confess, when I came here I thought it was called Misfits, not Mischiefs. But now I've had a look around and I think I know why. That's a joke, eh? Yeah. I'm only going to speak for a few minutes because basically I do believe that I'm talking to the converted. I'll give you a list of some of the topics that will be covered here tonight by speakers that go into things more in depth than I will. Things like the cost of the royal family, not just the cost of this celebration and what the government has spent on getting this big jamboree that we've all had to put up with last, well, forever it feels like, and that's culminated in this big party. They've rolled the Olympics and this into one. We're not the only ones that think that. You ask your neighbours over the border, they believe that. But the cost in general, obviously we prefer to have a few hundred more nurses and doctors than those that hang on. And anyone that says it's alright, they bring in loads of money from tourism. They might bring a fraction of a few pounds in with tourism, but if they weren't there, would those tourists still come? Of course they would. People go to see the pyramids. Yeah, when was the last time you saw a mummy walk around? Right, the militarisation. Not only, well, people are going to talk about the recruitment in schools, but has anyone ever asked why it is that the soldiers of Great Britain swear an allegiance to the head of state? They swear allegiance to the Queen or to the King. They don't swear allegiance to their country or to the people. That's what they should do. Ask the soldiers that. Ask the soldiers that. Propaganda. Just after Princess Di died, I think the royal family was almost on its arse. It was at its lowest ebb. Your royalists were even thinking, ooh, we've had enough of this royal family. But it just wasn't enough to give that death knell. But the propaganda machine has been in full swing. We can't change that. We haven't really got our own propaganda machine. You've got to rely on word of mouth. Yeah? You've got to tell everyone that you know everything that you know about what you know. And that's the only way. Yeah? We've got to educate our youth to see past the propaganda of this most privileged family on earth. Yeah? So the only way you can beat the propaganda war is to do it from the bottom up. royal estates and the crown estates, like I said, their wealth, their massive wealth, but they own the crown estates. So when they're throwing these windmills up, or wind farms up everywhere, and then they're making money off them. Yeah, so it's a win-win situation for them. You know, it's something like a tiny percentage of the people of you know, the country, and I say that as Britain, own all of Britain. It's wrong. The biggest point to me, as a Cymro, as a Welshman, is simply they're not mine. They don't represent me. My royal family is dead in the dirt. I wouldn't like to see, you know, some Welshmen want to see, some Welshmen would like to see, you know, a rehash of our own royal family. Fine, we can debate that if we have independence. It's not on the table at the moment. Yeah, my royal family is dead and done. Now, here's the most important part. The most important part of the reason I've come down here today is to rub shoulders with like-minded people. But again, I'm preaching to the converted. You already agree with most of what I've said. And if you don't, tell me after. The important reason that we're here is that the special branch operatives that are sitting amongst you can shuffle uncomfortably and report back to their masters. Those little buggers are still here. Come here.
I won't keep you. I've just asked Belial to give a little talk about the history of Welsh republicanism. Because it's not often we specifically celebrate a tradition that goes back that long. Welsh republicanism is a very, very old idea. In fact, I come from Madrid near Caerphilly, and in the grounds of the castle there's a memorial to a long forgotten man called Dr. Richard Price. Good to meet, you know, intelligent people who know their stuff. Good. Right, well, Richard Price, of course, was a writer who, he was a dissenter, in fact, but he wrote about the fact that the monarchy was not a divine thing. And basically, he laid down the ideas behind the French Revolution and the American Revolution. Though he wasn't much liked by the establishment in this country, he was welcomed as a hero in France. And then afterwards, well, there was a long gap really, but you could say that the next time we had Republican, it was our very own Iolo Morgannwg. And of course, Iolo Morgannwg is best known for the creation of the Gorsedd ceremony. And he wrote in the 1790s the stirring words, "If a tyrant king I meet, clench fist and knock him down." But of course those were words in the wilderness for many years during the 19th century. But it's interesting to know that we had the first Republican MP in Keir Hardie in Merthyr. And Keir Hardie spoke against the investiture of the Prince of Wales in 1911 in the following words: "Wales is to have an investiture as a reminder that an English king and his robber barons strove for ages to destroy the Welsh people and finally succeeded in robbing them of their land, driving them into the mountainous fastnesses of their native land like hunted beasts, and then had the insolence to have his son invested in their midst." Modern Welsh republicanism started just after the Second World War in 1949, when the Welsh Republican movement was established to campaign for the Welsh Republic and oppose the English monarchy. They were Welsh patriots who were anti-imperialist and internationalist, and we also had a tinge of green politics. A quote from their paper, The Welsh Republican. Anybody seen it? I've got some very old copies of the Welsh Republican. Anybody? No? Alright, well I've got some archives if anybody wants to look at stuff like that. So yeah, the Welsh Republic, and in there they wrote their politics was, in the sphere of the 20th century politics, Welsh republicanism must secure the backing of a unified people, of miner and quarryman, of docker and land worker. Nor must our sphere of action be limited to any narrow racial impositions. The Arab from Cardiff Bay is our concern, equally with the Welsh speaker from Cefnglad. So a very forward-looking movement in many ways. Not many people realise they were behind the placing of a bomb in 1953 in the valleys, Elan Valley. I don't know, have any of you ever heard of that? Oh, a couple of you have. You were there? 1953. Alright, well, never mind. Show willing. But yes, it's almost certainly was the Welsh Republican movement. And I think I worked out who it was who actually planted it. I think it was a miner from Caerphilly, Gwyndaf. I know how they got the dynamite because Peddy Lewis of the Welsh Republican movement told me, bless him, I interviewed him in Clefyd y Bere. Peddy told me the story. They got the dynamite for the bomb by, they were tipped off by a quarryman about a shed full of dynamite, and so it was all locked up. But they just lifted the door off the hinges and they got dynamite. Oh well, nice story anyway. And then of course in the 60s we had Mudiad and the Finn Cymru, which opposed the investiture. And do anybody of you remember the cannons at Caernarfon Castle? It's supposed to be a 21-gun salute. 22! 22! That man! The other one was a Mac bomb. Not many people know that. So anyway, yes. And then after that, after devolution in 1979, that's when I became involved. I became chairman of the Welsh Socialist Republican movement, and yes, the little unpleasantness with the police, should we say, a number of raids and so forth. But nevertheless, there was a show trial, and that was the end of M. But that wasn't the end of it by any means, because we continued through a Valley Gore. Now, anybody remember that paper? Yes! Oh, good. 1978 to 2004. And it was a Welsh Republican newspaper. Great, you know. It became the newspaper in the later days of Cymru Goch, and Cymru Goch, of course, was the Welsh Socialist Republican Party, and we, of course, organised in our last Congress, we organised the Stuff the Monarchy event 10 years ago in the last Jubilee, and all I can hope is that we don't have any special branch here today, because they were there 10 years ago, and then I was raided on the Tuesday and arrested and taken to Pontypridd police station and taken to the Pontypridd Magistrates Court, where I was supported by the Red Choir. They're always around, No, they do, bless them, they all turn up. And basically, the charge was inciting people to paint anti-monarchist slogans in the Rhondda. And it got to the Crown Court, and the judge said to the CPS guy, he said, well, how much damage was done? And the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, said, inestimable. And he said, oh, well, were there any slogans painted? And he said, well, no. And in simple language, I was being prosecuted for unsuccessfully inciting people to paint anti-monarchist slogans. It was a big disappointment. Anyway, I think just to finish, they're talking about the monarchy and Welsh republicanism. Ours is not the same as English republicanism, because of course we have the Prince of Wales. Wingnut. Don't you call it wingnut? Well, he is not that. anyway, right, we got Wingnut. Wingnut is 2 people. He's Prince Charles and he's also Duke of Cornwall. Now I've got to tell you, this can come in handy at times, because back in 1999 he had a rather big divorce payment to pay out, you may remember. And so he had to find some extra money. And he managed to make 2.3 million quid selling trees back to himself. Not bad, is it? There's trees called Goscoombe Wood, right down in North Cornwall, and he claimed they were owned by Charles Windsor, and Charles Windsor sold the trees to the Duchy of Cornwall, and he pocketed 2.3 million. Yeah? Not bad. Get it? Okay, so I'll just finish with that. And I'll just get in my 2 poems since I had an opportunity. They're poetry later on, but I've got 2 poems in this one. So, right. The first one is Dros Ryddid Collas Anti-Gael. Blood was something they knew. They saw it spurred from severed veins, saw bloody deaths in the ironworks. Blood rushed to their heads when molten ore spilt and scorched their limbs. Blood was spilt in fighting, man against man struggling to stay alive, just to survive. Bread drenched their flag when they raised it at Dowlice, red with the fire of their anger. Blood filled their hearts, its warm red smell fueled their determination. Blood they shed later when the troops fired on them and their anger overcame their fear. Blood brought them freedom for a week until money and power restored their authority. Dros Ryddid Collas Anti-Gael, Havana Gore was the flag of their blood. Let us always remember that. And finally, last but not least, a poem to Wingnut. The Prince of Wales.
Charlie!
The Prince... No, not Charlie. No. Wingnut. Get it right. Right, Prince of Wales. The Prince of Wales does not make sense. An upper-class twit, to wit, who doesn't fit. The Prince of Wales is not even Welsh, so he totally fails to represent Wales. The Prince of Wales lives in a different world. He's a useless dick, an empty con trick. The Prince of Wales, the son of the Queen, is an English aristocrat. To be precise, a pampered brat. The Prince of Wales is a prince for Wales, not ours, but theirs, and all their heirs. The Prince of Wales knows nothing about us. He's an insult to our pride, a prince to keep us pacified. The Prince of Wales is past his sell-by date. The facade is inadequate to take the weight. The Prince of Wales is a crumbling wreck, out of touch and dated, severely antiquated. The Prince of Wales has no future in Wales. Today, the myth fails. We've had enough of tales.
Just a couple of eiriau wedi chi am eich hamgylch newydd. First, some of you may be asking why something called Cardiff Bay Republican Day would be having a starting time of 7 in the evening. Well, our event plan for this afternoon unfortunately had to be moved to last Friday and to the Temple of Peace. Our event at the Temple of Peace, which was attended by over 100, saw the launch of our new petition and campaign to ban Ministry of Defence recruitment in Welsh schools. The petition is now live and on the Assembly website. Please take the time to quickly sign, assuming you want to end in morally indefensible practice of schoolyard recruitment. The issue of military recruitment in schools is of interest to people across Britain. However, following last year's referendum to deliver greater legislative powers to Wales, and since education falls under the Assembly's remit, now, and right here in Wales, is possibly the best time and place in which to raise the issue for serious consideration. The petition that we launched on Friday at the Temple of Peace aims to have the issue debated by our politicians, utilising the Assembly's concession to direct democracy, the e-petition facility. At the moment, it's the head teacher's prerogative who goes into schools. In Wales, we have a political chamber, a democratic sphere, our own elected representatives who should debate the issue. We should catch up with the other states who don't recruit on schoolyards and with the recommendations of expert international human rights bodies. There has been no formal government review or parliamentary debate on this issue in the UK for the past 100 years, and we feel the time should come to discuss it. My co-organiser Leon and myself have found many obstacles along the way, one being that out of the many Labour AMs we wrote to, we received only one reply back, and that was to inform us this individual would not be involved in debating such practices. Labour deems such a campaign as extreme or outlandish, yet the outlawing of MOD recruitment in schools would only bring Wales up to speed with prevailing international standards and previous comments by the United Nations. Out of the 27 EU countries, the United Kingdom is the only one to recruit within schools. Doubters about a prospective ban, those who often argue in favour of opportunities for poverty-stricken youth and overseas adventure, need to be informed that this cause is not a general comment aimed at the armed forces as a whole, but aimed at the more pointed target, the specific issue of the MOD's active pursuit of minors. Why must there be an MOD presence in schools when there is no presence in other EU countries? Compared with minors in Britain, children across the European Union have some protection from eager military recruiters. They are deemed perfectly capable of walking down to the recruitment offices on their own prerogative at a more suitable age for making such major decisions. Why can't UK children be the same? The contrast between UK practices and standards elsewhere is as stark as it is shameful. In 2008, the National Union of Teachers voted to ban misleading propaganda in schools, calling for a more balanced view of army life to be given to children. The image of military life that is currently presented is false and fails to mention any of the potentially enormously negative consequences of signing up. Having succumbed to the glamorised picture of military life as a source of unique learning opportunities and the world as an endless adventure playground, youngsters face the very real prospect of post-traumatic stress disorder, long-term mental illness, poverty and homelessness. The stories from post-traumatic stress charities are all similar in the sense many go away at 18, come back at 21, but their lives are over. And none of them have been prepared for such devastating consequences. In 2007, the government spent a record £89 million on army recruitment campaigns, almost 7,000 per recruit and an increase of £3.6 million on the previous year. We feel that when it comes to the government's spending aimed at our youngsters' future prospects, there are far more positive available options, more positive options than tying those under the age of 18, still considered children, into a legally binding contract, which after 6 months trial period is very hard to break. In terms of children getting a further education, what kind of country do we live in if the only way a teenager can get an education is with the permanent risk of death lurking around every corner? No young person should feel obliged to join the armed forces in order to fill an educational vacuum, nor should the MOD be required to fill a gap left by the inadequacies in the educational system. Freedom of information requests have proven how MOD recruiters disproportionately target the poorest communities, and considering that Wales is one of the poorest regions of the UK and Europe, there should be no surprise to learn that Wales ends up sending a disproportionate number of youngsters into the military relative to its size of the UK population. Why should the poor be expected to risk their lives much more than the children from better off areas, simply as a means for paid work? The bottom line of the argument is, if you're not old enough to vote, how can you be old enough to decide if you want to give your life? One cannot be an economic asset in one sense, but not another. People across Wales should take great heart in seeing politicians in Cardiff having the guts to forge ahead on something about which the UK government is dragging its heels, and for all the wrong reasons. The Welsh Government should make a stand and take the moral lead on this issue, not wait, as ever, for Scotland to make the move first. One last point about this evening's event. I'm sure you've all had it up to here with recent saturation coverage of the Diamond Jubilee, and it is no coincidence that we decided to launch our petition and campaign in context of the season of royalist propaganda. Let us not forget that the royals, far from being merely a benign constitutional decoration or perhaps an absurd distraction, depending on your view, actually serve a more sinister purpose. They are a prime PR softening agent in the promotion of British militarism, the friendly face of a brutal imperial war machine, not only engaged overseas, Harry in Afghanistan, Wales' innocent trip out to the Falklands, but also right here in Wales, where they are used to promote the continued colonial relationship with England and the exploitation of Wales' land, its people, and its natural resources. The new petition and campaign are an opportunity for what we might call civic republicanism, everyday citizens becoming actively engaged in the life of the polity. We want to get clear the message that true republicanism carries the message of peace and is neither marginal nor extremist. We want to claim back the word republicanism from London-centric media who label such as mainly mob rule anti-monarchism or Irish physical force nationalism. The image of both of these play into the hands of the London-centric constitutional political status quo. Therefore, we want the event Cardiff Bay Republican Day, which makes clear that true republicanism is the philosophy of peace. Civic republicanism, what we have all come here together to do today, to all come together as everyday citizens to call the bluff of a notion of an open democratic sphere and try to get our voices heard by working together. It's easy to become despondent and apathetic and to remain in our own cul-de-sac of niche interests and perspectives, but to achieve something like the banning of military recruitment in Welsh schools, we need to work together. Change is far likelier when those of varying starting points learn to work together and win the broader consensus. Please take a minute to sign the petition and even get those you know to do likewise. Diolch.
Noswaith i bawb a diolch i Sarah. Really interesting speech with some fantastic points made. I'm not going to speak for long. Can anybody remember March the 1st in Cardiff? Yeah. For me it stands out because there wasn't one single Union Jack flying in the centre of our capital. It was conspicuous by its absence. And that's what a Plaid Cymru administration did on the council that particular day. This weekend has been different, hasn't it? We've been saturated by UK nationalism, Union Jacks everywhere, wall-to-wall coverage. I wasn't sure if I was living in North Korea, to be honest, but obviously not in Cardiff. As a Republican, I felt particularly challenged. Well, what do I do? What do we do as Republicans to this onslaught? Because that's the only way to describe it. I would say what we must do really is have a more intelligent fight, as much as we possibly can, and actively promote the Republican agenda, because I represent a working class estate, council estate, Fairwater and Pentrabain, and if you tell people that you're a Republican, they don't really know what you mean, and that's something we've got to get over, that's something we need to conquer. We need to give the arguments for merit, democracy, against the outdated feudal model that we have in the UK. We need to connect as well. We need to connect with people and explain why the status quo is so bad. We're in recession. How much money has been spent this weekend? On what? On what? It's gone up in the air. And yet, next week and the week after, we'll have to make cuts. Or we'll be told to make cuts. Pensions. Now, who knows here? I came here last year, a fantastic speech by Republic. Lady from Republic. Suzanne. Fantastic speech. What a fantastic woman. Really informed me. I didn't know that intestate pensions went to Prince Charles until I came here last year. I didn't know until then that they had a kickback from every windmill that went up. And let's localise it. Let's look at Cardiff. Let's look at this, what this council is doing here, this Labour Council and the local development plan. They will be building on greenfield sites, and who's going to make the profits? The Earl of Plymouth Estates. Why do they own our land? I agree with Sarah, what we need to do is we need some civic republicanism, and we need to seize we need to get the cultural and social hegemony for our arguments. And one thing that I'm going to be doing over the next 12 months is organising as many street parties in this city as possible, not on St David's Day, the day after, Saturday, March the 2nd, wherever you live, make sure you organise a St David's Day street party, because we want to combat this Union Jack in Wales. I want to follow on with what Sarah said earlier, and Leon also, one of the organisers. I'm not a pacifist. I believe we do need an army. If you look at what's happening with the fascist forces in Eastern Europe now, I believe we need the means to be able to defend ourselves. But any Welsh armed force should be controlled by a Welsh democratic government. And it shouldn't be in Iraq, and it shouldn't be in Afghanistan. And why on earth should the armed forces have the right, in this country, in the UK, in Wales, in England, Scotland alone, to advertise to our youth, to advertise the British Armed Forces? Why is that? I'll be signing the petition, I'll be raising council's questions on the council, and I'll be asking Leon and Sal to put a public question, because my daughter goes to school. I don't want her being taught by the British Army and being encouraged to go abroad and bomb people and shoot people. What for? And put herself in danger. I'll tell you what they should be doing. They should be telling people what it's like to come back without a limb, to have to apply for benefits, to be denied benefits, to not to be able to have housing, to living with post-traumatic stress disorder. Also being a soldier on the front line, coming back and being told you can't see your child, because in the British courts, a legitimate reason to stop a father seeing his child is that he's fought a war, because it means he's prone to violence. And can you imagine coming back from Iraq and not being able to see your child? Now, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to write to every single AM actually, and ask them to put a statement of opinion into our Assembly in Wales, because that's what we need. Forget Westminster, let's do it in Cardiff, yeah? Yes. Events, educate, let's take civic republicanism forward. I'll tell you what, they'll finish on this because I'm optimistic, because in my area there are only 2 street parties, and actually nobody cared about the Jubilee. It was a day off and it was a day to celebrate. And I'll tell you what, there's a vacuum, and what we need to do as Republicans is fill that gap. And we'll do that on March 2nd next year. Go to the Dowie Sands. St. David's Day, let's do it. Diolch yn fawr.
Hi, it's lovely to be back and to see so many people here again. I just thought that you might like to have a report on the march that we made through London on Sunday. We arrived to find that we were prevented from joining the people who had already got there. About 100 Republicans had made it into City Hall, where we were going to be giving our speeches and where it had been prearranged that we were allowed to meet. But suddenly we and a lot of other people were stopped from going in there. It's a bit of a puzzle because apparently there was lots of room. So outside we decided that we would have our own speeches and we would do our own marches. They said on the BBC, they reported and showed films of about 100 people waving placards, and said that there was a small group of 100 Republicans. That's actually a lie, because there was about 1,300 of us there that day, and we made one hell of a day. And we engaged the public, and we handed out leaflets, and we chanted, and we had speeches. And it was quite uplifting. You were there, Keith was there, he enjoyed it. And we have, I've forgotten your Wendy and Elizabeth and I, and we did our marching, we did our shouting, we did our chanting, and we did our leafleting. On the way up, we got engaged with, we stopped for a coffee and services, and there was about 8 policemen, weren't there, on motorbikes, and they were having coffee. So we thought we'd get warmed up getting into a debate with them, and we discovered that they were actually fairly monarchist. So we gave them food for thought, and one of them said, I don't want to hear anything because I know all I need to know. So I said, right, did you know that in certain instances the Queen and Prince Charles actually receive the surpluses of workers' pension funds? And he said, no, I didn't know that. I said, what up for me? You didn't know that? I thought you said you knew it all. But one of the things that we found very upsetting was the number of people who have closed minds. The number of people who said, I don't want to know, I adore her, I just don't want to know. One of the things that we found encouraging was the number of friendly policemen who sneaked our leaflets under their uniforms. But last year, when I spoke about Charles and the duchies, I think that when the Queen goes, and unless she's discovered the secret of immortality, she is going to go, one way or the other. Pardon? Then what we've got before us is the fight against either Charles or William, because it looks as if they're trying to sidestep Charles and have a go at William as being the fresh young face who's going to save us all in Britain. And we find it very upsetting that we're presented constantly with the idea from monarchists that Britain will be nothing, absolutely nothing, without the royal family. And I find that highly insulting, because what I'd like to ask tonight is there anyone here in this room, and I'll give you a fiver if you can come up with it, anybody here who can actually tell me of one piece of legislation that benefits us today, us the common man, one piece of law or rights that have come because the monarchy have campaigned for it or have given it to us. Because I can't think of one single piece of legislation that has empowered us or given us our human rights here in Britain today that's come from them. Every human right that we've got, every piece of legislation that we've got has come because the common man has fought for it, against them, despite them, certainly not because of them. I find it upsetting that so many of the schools still allow the teachers to whip up the idea that that we must put the Queen and the royal family on a pedestal. It's wrong. It should be neutral in schools, and otherwise parents should have the right to say, I don't want my children joining the gang and going out and standing in the rain for an hour and waving at somebody who's gone past in 2 seconds who shouldn't be there at all. And I think what we're up against is the system. But one of the things that does encourage me today is the fact that up until now we've had centuries of brainwashing, centuries of being told what we're expected to believe, and centuries of decades of the BBC giving full priority to the indoctrination that comes from the palace and keeping the Republican voice to almost a pittance. But that's going to change, because now we have got very powerful weapons. We've got the internet, we've got YouTube, we've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, and they're not going to be able to keep our voice silent any longer. If it can work for China, it's going to work for us here. And goodness knows we need it. It's wrong that we should be able to tell other countries that they should become democratic and give their people rights when we don't have the right here to elect a head of state. It's wrong that we have such a culture that says there's one culture for you, but there's another culture for them. If one of our children had done what Andrew did, going out and being involved with suspicious dealings with legal regimes, being involved with paedophiles, being involved with having misappropriated public money because of his house. I mean, I don't know how many of you know, but Sunningdale, which was the house that he was given by the Queen, was a piece of land that actually belonged to the Crown. Now that's the Crown in the people, which is different to the Duchy of Lancaster and the Duchy of Windsor. It's actually land that's owned by the people. Land, estates, property. And he had a piece of property that should have on the open market cost £120,000. He had it for £12,000. He sold it to somebody from Kurdistan for something like 15 million. which was highly suspicious because the estate agents said that they were quite confident that it shouldn't have gone for more than 8 million. So why was the extra money given to Charles? To Andrew. So he was involved in all these suspicious dealings, and the MPs were calling for an investigation. It had got to the point where a lot of them were calling for his dealings to be investigated. And what happens? The Queen makes him a Knight of the Garter. If it was your children and my children, we'd want to know. If it was an MP, they'd have them hauled over the coals. He doesn't even get an investigation, he gets the Knight of the Garter. What sort of message does that send out to us? And what sort of culture does it create? It's a two-tier culture. It's wrong. I could go on forever. I mean, for instance, his Air Miles Andy's expenses. We all know that he has a massive amount of costs for travel. But what you may not know is that he only has to declare travel expenses that cost over £10,000. So how many pieces of travel does he do that costs 2 and 3 and 4,000? Because he's not known for standing still, is old Andy. I mean, with Charles, we've got the situation where he does receive public money into the duchy. So does the Queen. We know that he's got all these charities set up into which the money disappears. They're not charities in the sense that you and I would understand charities. They're charities to further his particular interests. He's a very, very dangerous person, and we've got to really campaign now to expose what he is doing. It's too late for the Queen, but we have got somebody there who is an Achilles heel, and I think we've got to go for it. Anyway, I just thought you might like to know that whilst we are totally fed up with the whole viewing that we've had, not just for the last 4 days, but for weeks and weeks and weeks, we are also very optimistic in what we're seeing around us. And whilst I appreciate that we have got Republic Wales and a specific agenda here, we're also Republic UK, because we don't just want to get rid of a Prince of Wales, we want to get rid of the whole damn lot of them. Thank you very much.
Thanks for waiting, thank you. Hello, I'm here tonight just to try and go over the basics of sovereignty for Wales and what it would mean and how we can get there. It should be obvious by now that the Westminster and London banking fraternity has failed us and will continue to fail us and everyone else except the bankers themselves. I believe we have a duty now to start protecting our rights, our basic rights and resources from the soft power taking of our resources, from out of control foreign policy and kamikaze economics from Westminster. Sovereignty is also protectionism. You can call it sovereignty, you can call it republicanism or independence, it's all the same thing. We have to defend what belongs to the country of Wales and all its citizens under the republican concept of defence. Under this system, I think the basic 3 things we have to defend is energy, land and water. These are all things which will mean prosperity for everyone in Wales, not just political hierarchy or anyone else, just that the individuals of Wales, they can all prosper from control of energy, land and water. I'll try not to bore everyone with too many facts and figures here, but I probably will anyway a bit. We have 250 million tonnes of Welsh coal that's available to us. We have 13 trillion cubic feet of Welsh gas still available to us. All this energy can keep us going for decades. Enough time for us to invest in all our renewable energy resources and infrastructure, which can provide jobs for up to 60,000 people. So just to repeat that, we have 250 million tonnes of Welsh coal, 13 trillion cubic feet of Welsh gas, which will last us for decades and make us a prosperous nation. Why the hell are we not independent? Will there be, for example, as the Russians and Chinese are sniffing around will there be in Anglesey, thinking of nuclear power, we have the Welsh coal supplies that can supply will there be for decades and provide employment and provide a strong Welsh economy through a Welsh coal and develop a national Welsh grid. If Wales develops a proper national energy, land and water policy, we can become not only economically self-sufficient but a profit-making and prosperous country, more than balancing the £10 billion deficit with England, saving the good citizens of England. They deserve their own money. Why should they give away their money to us? We can make our own money. There's no need for it at all. We also need a campaign for a Welsh land and coastal and sea acts to challenge the ridiculous current housing development plans that will force and swamp Welsh communities with unwanted and unnecessary housing developments. Also stopping the ridiculous cross-border plan to make North East Wales a sub-region of Liverpool City. I mean, who came up with this plan and why isn't the Welsh Government defending this? I mean, this is Wales and Liverpool is trying to claim North East Wales as a sub-region. I mean, exactly, so why?
They've done it in Cardiff, they've done it in Wales, so they've done it, and that's because they too fucking scared to stand up and say.
Exactly, good to know. So what's the point of a Welsh Government if we can't defend our basic rights and our borders? We also urgently need to campaign for all Wales to take charge of all Welsh water infrastructure, production and distribution within the borders of Wales, and to ensure that all Welsh water is exported is paid for, whether it goes to England, Malta or China. All of these main areas of energy, land and water will bring real jobs, good homes and a stronger and a prosperous economy, a self-sufficient economy. It's not about anything else except just we can pay for ourselves. That's the basics involved. Wales can also lead the way in responsible capitalism and a banking system that's accountable to government and not the other way around. As we've seen in London, it's the government that's accountable to the banks, whereas it should be the banks responsible for the government. Got that right, I think. So how can we all make a difference? Well, we can try and lean ourselves out of our virtual and digital worlds and virtual trance, and try and put pressure on our AMs, MPs, MEPs or UN members and demand they do their job, which is to protect us as citizens of Wales, all our resources and rights as citizens, starting with our energy, land and water. Then you can make a difference. You can also make a difference by protesting against the exploitative windmills being built around Wales, which are highly inefficient compared to maglev wind technology, for example, being developed in China, which are about twice as efficient and about twice the price, basically. To finish, I think the hand of friendship should also be offered to the citizens of England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland and all the nations of the world. There is a common struggle that we all face in view of governmental economic mismanagement and immoral, dangerous foreign policies which will affect everyone. Anyone watching events in America, Europe and the Middle East realises that the situation is real and it's global. So the question isn't why should Wales be a sovereign country, the question is why shouldn't it? If any country deserves and needs sovereignty, it's Wales, leading as a fully autonomous Welsh sovereign state within the brotherhood of world nations. Only then can Wales truly start to shine. We are sovereign, Cymru am byth. Diolch yn fawr.